of Poland. From European Commission, Kadri Simpson, the Commissioner for Energy. We have online view here. Is Katrin with us? Yes. Welcome, Katrin. Also from European Commission, Ditte Juul Jørgensen, Director General from DG Energy. Welcome. We still remain with Denmark, and we have here physically in Szczecin, Mary Hindhede, Permanent Secretary of State in the Ministry of Climate, Energy and Utilities. Welcome. Germany, Andreas Feicht, Secretary of State, Ministry of Economic Affairs and Energy. Welcome. Now we're switching online to Estonia and welcome Timo Tatar, Deputy Secretary for Energy. Welcome, Timo. Latvia, Jurgis Mizanis, Parliamentary Secretary of the Ministry of Economics. Waiting for Latvia. Are we having Jurgis? Okay, we will wait for Latvia. Then let me introduce to you Ministry of Energy from Lithuania, Žygimantas Valčinius. Welcome. From Finland, Kimmo Tiilikainen, State Secretary of Deputy Minister of Economic Affairs. Are we here with Finland? Hopefully later during the signing of the declaration will be with us. And Sweden, we are waiting for Sebastian De Toro, State Secretary to Minister for Energy and Digital Development. Also, welcome all attendants from Baltic Sea region, representative public administration, and key players from wind power industry, physically and online. Now, let me give the floor to Minister Kurtyka, Minister of Climate of Poland. Michał, welcome.
Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, it's my great pleasure to welcome you here in Szczecin at the Baltic's southern shore at the ministerial session of the Pomeranian Offshore Wind Conference. I'm very happy that we are able to have a discussion today on an enhanced cooperation on offshore wind energy in the Baltic Sea region. In this group, among ministers, representatives from the leading companies and other participants, we provide a well-balanced platform to discuss and learn how to better cooperate. Because if we want to wind down critical barriers and enact policies and actions that bring market needs in line with the investment capacities, we need to use this opportunity. Together, we can create an environment for partnership, highlighting also lessons learned from experiences gained within the North Sea energy cooperation. Our alliance can increase policy effectiveness and create momentum for action. And I think that we are also sending a clear signal that our region is shifting to new technologies ensuring the development and a good environment for investments. Ladies and gentlemen, in light of the objective of achieving a climate-neutral Europe by 2050, the Paris Agreement, the European Green Deal, and national renewable deployment targets, increasing offshore wind energy production will be absolutely essential. And the Ministry of Climate that I have the pleasure to represent has recently presented an updated energy policy of Poland until 2040. And the goal of the state's energy policy is to provide energy security while ensuring competitiveness, energy efficiency, and reduction of the environmental impact of the energy sector. And the reduction of emissions from the energy sector will be possible mainly through the offshore wind, nuclear energy, and increasing the role of distributed and civic energy while ensuring energy security. According to our plan, offshore wind farms to be in operation in Poland from 2025 will play a crucial role in achieving the renewable energy target. And we estimate that by 2030, 5.9 gigawatts of installed capacity will be at the Polish seashore, while approximately between 8 till 11,000 megawatts will be operational by 2040. In 2030, we want that one in every 3 megawatts of consumed electricity in Polish energy system comes from renewables. As I said, 5.5 gigawatts stemming from offshore wind, but also 5 till 7 gigawatts from photovoltaics and 8 till 10 gigawatts from onshore wind energy. Ladies and gentlemen, wind energy already constitutes an important element of the Polish energy mix. We recently celebrated in June 10,000 megawatts of installed renewable capacity here in Poland, to be compared with 35,000 megawatts of installed capacity within the conventional system. And full exploitation of the offshore and onshore wind potential will enable transformation of the energy system towards low-emission economy and help to ensure energy security. And currently, we as Ministry of Climate, we work on the draft Offshore Wind Act, which covers all areas for investors, such as support scheme, local content plans, grid connection, obligation of the generator of electricity, as well as regulations concerning construction and operation, tax and administrative proceedings. I would like to underline that this project is a priority for Ministry of Climate and for my Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki, and all activities are aimed at submission of the draft act to the Parliament in autumn this year. As part of the so-called sectoral agreement that we want to propose to the industry, we will simultaneously work on the development of the offshore wind energy sector in Poland in many areas: staff development, innovation, industry development, or supply logistics. And Poland hopes that the upcoming EU strategy for offshore renewables will be a guide for the member states in the offshore field, taking into account the current realities. We are confident that offshore wind is one of the technologies that will lead to the achievement of the goals set by the European Commission regarding climate neutrality. We need to unlock together its real potential in the Baltic Sea. Thus, I'm very happy to see all my colleagues from different ministries being present here, either online, and I welcome him here, colleagues who couldn't connect before, so I see Finland also joining us, And I see here physically present my colleagues who had the wheel, and I'm very happy to see them physically here in Szczecin. So thank you, Denmark, thank you, Germany, thank you, Lithuania, for being with us here directly. As today, I think we celebrate really a great day for energy and Baltic Sea energy cooperation. The Baltic Sea offshore wind declaration of intent to be signed today is a cornerstone for the future cooperation. We have spent the last months working on a good text, and I'm happy that we are now ready to give a strong message to the energy world. I'm confident that the declaration will ignite the spark and create new perspectives for regional partnership in the field of offshore wind energy, as well as accelerated sustainable investments in this sector. We are also starting a period of close regional cooperation in spatial planning for maritime areas, grid development, planning of capacity, and support mechanisms. All these components will be of key importance for the development of a well-functioning internal energy market and cross-border infrastructure. By making use of the potential of offshore wind in the Baltic Sea, we can build a new sector of the economy around the emerging industry, which will be based in the European Union. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us here today. I wish you a very fruitful discussion. And now it's my pleasure to pass the floor to the Commissioner for Energy, Ms. Kadri Simpson. Kadri, the floor is yours.
Let me start by thanking you, Michał, for your personal commitment and energy that reaches across borders and has brought us together on this occasion of signing PEMI Declaration of Intent for Offshore Wind. Well, I truly regret that I'm not able to join today's conference in person, but we must and we will continue our joint work despite the pandemic and travel restrictions. 2 weeks ago, we announced our climate target plan with a landmark phase of ambition. We are committing to a reduction of at least 55% of greenhouse gas emissions by 2030. To give you a relevant example, in real terms, that means that just 1 decade for the share of renewable electricity jumped from 32% to 65% in Europe. And yes, we need to double the role of renewable electricity in the very near future. Let's be clear from the start, this calls for ever so strong focus on offshore energy because that is where we see the greatest untapped potential. If we are serious about reaching climate neutrality by 2050, then we need to upscale on and offshore renewable energy massively and right away, not leaving it to the next generations. Offshore energy capacity is expected to increase at least 20-fold by 2050. That will require a number of components for the perfect formula. Offshore and onshore networks at the right scale and smart enough to collect this amount of electricity and transmit it to users. State-of-the-art turbines, transmission and other relevant technologies also to strengthen our industrial leadership. Also prioritization of a strong pipeline of new projects, of course, massive investments. And last but not least, environmental aspects such as maritime spatial planning and protecting biodiversity. At the EU level, we are putting these building blocks together in our upcoming offshore renewable energy strategy that we are presenting in November. And the first legislative instrument of mandate, the revised regulation on trans-European energy networks, to be tabled by the end of 2020. At the regional level, Baltic Sea Basin connects all of us that are present today. It is as simple as that. Its importance goes far beyond the scope of one member state. We should use this connection to make the most of its potential. That said, Baltic Sea countries have a long-standing tradition of doing just that. Since the creation of the POMERANIan high-level group, we have managed to create a truly integrated region and market. It is a perfect example of going further by going together. A testament to what we can achieve, and I hope to see this long-standing tradition continue, because the road ahead is paved with other crucial steps where cooperation will be the key. I know that the regional work is already well underway on the Baltic Sea Offshore Grid Initiative. This kind of strengthened cooperation for joint and hybrid offshore projects is exactly what we need. Beyond the EU strategy and regional cooperation, allow me to recall that 2 weeks ago, we also launched a new flagship on renewables. This is part of the recovery and resilience facility of the next generation EU recovery package. The first pillar of this flagship is dedicated to front-loading future-proof and clean technologies. At the same time, it will accelerate the deployment of renewables through better connected and modernized networks. In the coming months, we will assist member states in putting together their plans to use these funds and these funding opportunities. At the same time, we have also set up an EU renewable energy financing mechanism to become operational as of 2021, which will encourage cooperation between member states to get large-scale projects off the ground. Ladies and gentlemen, today we will embark on a new joint journey. We have come a long way to guarantee the security of supply and smooth functioning of the internal energy market. With this proven track record of regional cooperation, we are endorsing the declaration of intent with confidence that we will be stronger together than all individually. It will be the blueprint of our common way towards climate neutrality. And let me assure you my great appreciation of all the efforts the countries in the region are putting in clean energy transition. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this presentation and nice welcome to our guests. Now I would like to give the floor to Ms. Ditte Jørgensen, Director General DG Energy. Ditte, are you with us? Yes.
Thank you very much for the kind welcome. It's a great honor to be here together with the Minister Michał Kurtyka and my Commissioner Kadri Simpson and to speak at this important event. The offshore renewable energy deployment is instrumental in achieving our European Green Deal objectives and in achieving climate neutrality for Europe. And also the offshore renewable energy can help contribute to the recovery from the COVID crisis, which is one of the most important objectives facing all of us in Europe. We from the European Commission, DG Energy, presented a number of strategies earlier this year, as a strategy for energy system integration and a strategy for hydrogen, which set the first building blocks in building an integrated energy system for a climate neutral Europe with increased levels of renewable energy. We will add to that a strategy on offshore renewable energy this coming months, which will set out a coherent series of initiatives to support the deployment and integration of offshore wind and other renewables into our energy system across Europe. It's clear that we need to significantly scale up offshore renewable energy, and that will require a step change in the level of regional cooperation, like what we're seeing here today. So I'm very, very happy that the political cooperation in the Baltic region is now being kickstarted for offshore development in the Baltic Sea, with the signature of the Declaration of Intent in just a couple of minutes from now. This is very much in line with and a beautiful opening to the offshore renewable energy strategy that we'll be adopting, or that the Commission will be adopting later this autumn. I'm convinced that the Baltic Sea is a leader and an example of what can be achieved through regional cooperation will very, very quickly become a front runner also in the field of offshore wind development. Just look at what you have already achieved together in the Baltic region. You have ended the energy isolation of the Baltic states and Finland. You have created a joint power market with the Nordic countries. You're putting on track the synchronization of the Baltic states with the continental European grid by the end of 2025. And you are establishing a regional gas market between the three Baltic states and Finland in the near future to end any energy isolation and to bring Europe closer together also via our energy markets. The Baltic Sea has a great potential for offshore renewable generation, going up to 93 gigawatts according to a study from 2019. The BEMIP high-level group, which has been active since 2009, creates a well-established structure for cooperation that will enable the newly created offshore wind working group to start work immediately to bring this forward. In the spring of next year, the working group should elaborate a detailed work program for offshore wind development in the Baltic Sea. I look forward very, very much to setting this declaration of intent in motion and to be working with you. As always, our role in the Commission in this will be to facilitate and support the offshore wind working group, and we look forward to that. In addition to that, the transmission system operators in the BEME region have already concrete plans to start the integrated network planning that will be required for reaching the offshore wind potential in the Baltic Sea Offshore Grid Initiative. These aspects are also reflected in our ongoing work for review of the regulation on trans-European networks, the TEDI legislative proposal, which is planned for later this year. So we've got a number of initiatives at regional level, at national levels, and at European levels, working hand in hand to achieve these important objectives. It's clear that integrating the additional renewable energy and renewable electricity into our energy system cannot be achieved just by the current piecemeal approach, but it requires a more integrated approach to infrastructure development. Continued national development and radio electricity connection to shore alone are not really fit to achieve the scale-up of offshore renewable energy and grid development that is needed. So we need to develop integrated offshore grids that are based on principles of energy system integration. We need to make sure that regulatory and investment conditions are clarified and barriers removed. We need to make sure that there is sea basin approaches to deliver the great amount of offshore projects we're looking at across Europe. BEMIT members and the Commission should together anticipate, plan and deliver solutions for the interactions between new energy capacities, existing sea users and the marine environment. We also need strategic approaches to maintain European global leadership in the industrial and technological development in offshore renewable energy. Together, we should identify where support is most needed to foster research and innovation, competitiveness, to reduce supply dependency and build an offshore energy value chain benefiting the Baltic region and all of Europe with jobs and growth, and in particular in this time of recovery. This strengthened cooperation as regards joint and hybrid offshore wind projects will lead to a more flexible, resilient and well-balanced energy network able to ensure clean, secure and affordable energy supply in the Baltic region. I look forward to seeing how the first hybrid project between Estonia and Latvia, where the Memorandum of Understanding was recently signed, will proceed. I think that the hybrid project involving the island of Bornholm should not be far behind, and these projects and others will help pave the way for more integrated regional approaches in the Baltic Sea, which is so necessary for reaching the offshore potential. Thank you very much for inviting me here today.
Thank you, Ditte, very much. And we are waiting forward as an industry, as a governments for the new strategy for offshore wind. So we hope it will be very soon available and will also accelerate development of offshore wind in the Baltics region. Ladies and gentlemen, we are very close to this historical moment. In the meantime, Sweden and Finland join with us. So great welcome to Sweden and Finland once again. Okay, and now I would like to ask to start an official signing of the Baltic Sea Offshore Wind Declaration of Intent between the Baltic Sea member states. and please approach to the table and sign the declaration. And I would like to ask Denmark to begin. You can keep the pen, please, and sit, and please sit with us here on the stage. Marie, thank you very much. And then going further, I would like to ask Ministry of Germany to sign the declaration. You can take it, please. And please join your colleague here at the stage. Now, let's switch to Estonia, to Timo. And Timo, do you confirming Estonia is joining the declaration?
Yes, of course, with great pleasure.
Thank you very much for confirmation. Now, Latvia. Is Latvia with us? Yes. Do you confirm Latvia is joining, signing the declaration?
Yes, we endorse the declaration, and it would be a great basis on which to build future development of offshore wind parks, as we all are in the same direction to the goal of climate neutrality. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Round of applause. Lithuania. Minister, can you please approach to us and sign the declaration? Thanks to the hybrid conference, we can now ask Finland if it's joining the Baltic Sea Declaration.
Thank you, Chair. I have a pencil here and I'm very ready to sign this document. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Finally, we have Sweden. Is Sweden joining the declaration?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I confirm that Sweden endorsed the declaration. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We can now say, no, we have last very important guest with us to sign Poland. Choose, please, one. But now you have to take two because you touched them. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, now we are starting the cooperation between the Baltic Sea region member states. Congratulations. Ladies and gentlemen, now we are approaching to the discussion for today. I would like to ask Ms. Kamila Tarnacka, Vice President of Polish Wind Energy Association. Warm welcome, Kamila. And new President of WindEurope Association, Philippe Kavafyan, also the CEO of MHI Vestas. Welcome. Guys, the floor is yours. Good luck.
So we will start with short introduction. Philippe is first. He will give some overview on offshore.
We are going to take a couple of minutes to share with you why many parts of the world has already been joining a very exciting journey. Offshore wind is now capable of providing competitive, scalable, clean energy in many parts of the world. When you look at where we are in the world, there's 30 gigawatt installed. More than 22, actually 23 gigawatt of these 30 gigawatt are in Europe. When you look at the map of Europe, it would be a waste not to consider the potential of the Baltic Sea. And that's why it's a privilege for us to join this event. And what we would like to share with you as a message is that not only this is a solution for addressing the goal of Europe decarbonization, offshore wind and wind can be a pillar of the decarbonization scenarios. But what is also the great news is that all the countries that joined the declaration are going to see major economic benefits and sustained activity with regards to this development. And this is the fair and clean transition that Europe has on its agenda. But again, just looking at the map, it would be really a pity not to concentrate on the potential of the Baltic Sea. We are just at the beginning of the journey. Just in the Baltic, we could do 3 times more offshore wind than what we have been doing in the entire world until now. There is no missed train, there is no delay in joining the club. This is an opportunity that's all in front of us. Just 3 numbers. Today, we have only a very small percentage, 12% of the installed wind capacity in Europe, that is this 23. Out of 200 gigawatt, we have 23 is offshore wind. If you just project yourself 10 years, this 200 gigawatt of wind in Europe will double. It will be 400 gigawatt. But what is even more interesting for this conference is that the 12% will become 28%. So the percentage of the offshore contribution into the doubling of the wind agenda in Europe is going to more than double. And if you extrapolate even further in the 2050 scenario, where we want to have a very strong contribution of wind to be able to imagine a decarbonized Europe to let to our children for a sustainable world, in that the wind installations should be 1,200 gigawatts, so 6 times more than today. And in that 1,200 gigawatt, wind could play offshore 37%. So not only we are talking about doubling and then multiply by 6, but we are going to increase the percentage of offshore wind in these scenarios. So I'm not going to spend time on how we do this, because this is why we have a panel and we will ask questions. But the key message is we are at the beginning of the journey. This is the solution for the long-term decarbonization of Europe. And most important, this is the best way to provide sustainable jobs in all the coastal areas of the Baltic Sea. Thank you very much.
Okay. I will add a few sentences about the Baltic, because in Baltic, we have only 2.2 gigawatts now of installed capacity in offshore. And what we can achieve by 2050 is 83 gigawatts. This is the result of the report prepared by BVG in cooperation with WindEurope. And it shows that 83 gigawatts in 2050 is achievable. So today we will discuss it, how to achieve it, and what what challenges are in front of us in this process. European Commission has also prepared a report on offshore in Baltic seas, and it says that we can even achieve 83 gigawatts, so it's even more optimistic. This means that the Baltic may become a foundation for Europe's energy transition. And as results from the WindEurope's report, the highest capacities would be in Poland, where we would have 28 gigawatts, in Sweden around 20 gigawatts, and in Finland around 15 gigawatts of offshore energy from offshore. And now a few words about Poland. Can I have the next slide? Or okay. So here in Poland, we are developing offshore very intensively. Right now, as Minister Kurtyka mentioned, we are expecting a new act establishing a support system for offshore. And our investors, developers will start contracting components, turbines, etc. So we will go forward very quickly. Now we have 12 projects in progress, in development, and as the map shows, some of them are located closer to the shore, and they will be developed first, and we have also some projects further with a bit higher LCOE. And what we are expecting here in Poland is that first energy from offshore will come to the grid in 2025, 2026, if everything goes smoothly. So 28 gigawatts in 2050, this is what Poland is expecting from offshore. Thank you very much. Okay, so now we are starting our panel session, and we will ask questions to our guests. Philippe will ask this first question, which is for everyone. So we will ask you to answer, and we give you just 2 minutes to respond, because the second round will be a little bit longer. But as we have streaming here, so we kindly ask you to keep.
So we'll make it easy to start. We'll ask the same question to everyone, and you just have to answer in turn. But our question is simple. What do you think could be the main challenge to implement the cooperation between the Baltic countries on offshore wind? And I will start with Denmark. Sorry to pick you.
Fine. Well, I think, as I think both the Commissioner and the Director General from the Commission mentioned, if we are to reach the goals that we have in the European Union, and also the ambitious goals that many member states have, we need a massive build-out of offshore wind. You mentioned it yourself as well. And if we are to succeed with that, we have to stop thinking of offshore wind as everyone building the last offshore wind farm all the time, with an individual farm and a connection to the shoreline. We need to look at it as a regional approach, and how we can have the grids be part of that solution and connect to our different countries. And I think as far as the implementing goes, we have experience in Denmark from the work also in the North Seas Energy Corporation for years now, I think, which has been working really well, I think. But if you want to implement things, if you want things to go from visions to actual plans to reality, you need well, at least two things. I think you need to have some high-level backing. So I think the high-level group should take responsibility and take on a role in the implementation work. And I think we also need the experts. We need to crunch the numbers. We need to look at the socioeconomics, market impacts, and environmental impacts, and technical aspects, and much more. And that means we also need to task our TSOs to be part of the work. I think I'll stop there.
Thank you very much, Mayor.
And
thank you.
Minister Feicht.
Yeah, thank you. Additional to that, what you already mentioned, I totally agree, is that such a cooperation can have the effort and the outcome bringing people together, like today in this fair and this conference. So not only government, but also operators, TSOs, and business to business. Because if you look at the map, and I was very impressed about the map, is what is on the first glance is all these existing projects and the upcoming projects are near the shores, and they are in national waters. But if you want to expand it very much and to very high numbers, then it's clear that there should be international cooperations. And therefore we need what we say an EU enabling framework. So we need guidance by the EU Commission. That's why we put it on the agenda of during our presidency, on the agenda of the energy councils. And we want to have to achieve council conclusions on that, because we need an appropriate electricity market rules for hybrid wind energy projects. So offshore projects which are connected together and connected to different countries. But this is on the first glance quite reasonable, but on the second glance it's quite complicated. Both of us, we are talking about it quite often, and that's not too easy to achieve. And the second thing is we need guidance by the Commission on an improved coordination of spatial and grid planning between member states. Because the main challenge, of course, when it comes to market design and subsidy schemes and so on, but the main challenge, and we in Germany, we have already 7.7 gigawatt of installed capacity, is the grid connection. So just to construct the lines on time, because this is quite not easy to make the synchronization between the development of those offshore wind farms, but also to construct them, and in the meantime, simultaneously to bring the electricity to the shores and to integrate it into the onshore grid. And therefore, these planning schemes are very crucial in order of having success at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. And now Minister Timo Tatar from Estonia.
Yeah, thank you. So first of all, really sorry that I couldn't be there in person, but I have enjoyed events so far with those excellent solutions which we have right now available for all of us. But regarding the challenges which we are facing regarding the offshore developments, then I largely agree what my colleagues from Denmark and Germany already said. So we need an enabling framework. So I guess we all have our hopes high regarding coming months when we will see the first by Commission, and then of course a regional approach. So we need to get it right the first time to get electricity to shore in the right spot. Not where maybe it's the most convenient for every another project, but looking the Baltic Sea region as a whole, the market as wholly functioning, and in that regard, want get around of hybrid grid. So we have to plan the parks, hybrid grids in parallel. So this is the only way how we can scale up the investments needed, and also do it away and do it also in the way which benefits mostly the societies. And for that, we see that so far has been the declaration which we all signed today. So that's indeed, as Michał put it, a pillar or this cornerstone of the further cooperation. So we look forward that today's event, something great will happen, which we can all recall decades forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Minister Jurgis Mezainis, which is your partner.
Thank you. And I completely agree with our Estonian neighboring minister regarding that regional approach is a must-have for developing a successful offshore wind farm. As I already mentioned, that the future for Europe and all of us is going to climate neutrality, to the renewable solutions, and especially in energy, in production of energy. We can see that one of the future-based resources will be electricity, and when we produce this electricity, we should produce it in more sustainable ways. And of course, when we look at the needs and the possibilities, the Baltic region is very, very huge possibilities for developing these kinds of projects because it's not so populated regarding the wind turbines, and there are spots and places where they can be used. And I'm very glad that Latvia and Estonia has signed a memorandum of understanding regarding a regional wind park between Latvia and Estonia. And if we work together, we can see that the future will be of energetics, of course, will be more greener and more sustainable, and our climate will greatly benefit from it, and our people as well, and our manufacturers. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And the same question to Minister Kurtyka.
Thank you. I agree with pretty much everything what was said. So it's I think we share the same vision of challenges to the implementation. And first of all, I think that we share the common vision. We all together see a great potential of the Baltic Sea. We see a wealth in our sea, which makes us all neighbors, close neighbors. And starting from this vision, I think we also recognize by signing this declaration that there are no frontiers on the sea. And that if we want to take care of this wealth, but also make the right use of this wealth, we need to work together. And my colleague from Germany, and I'm very happy to support German presidency during the coming months, because I think that preparing and creating an enabling regulatory framework for offshore wind will be an extremely important challenge based on European Commission proposition. But then there are a couple of issues that we need to solve altogether. You mentioned them also: grid connections, maritime spatial planning. We need to face these issues all together. But I think that taking my hat of previous COP24 president, which is climate summit, which took place in southern Poland, in Katowice, I look also at the technologies that we are developing as a proposition from Europe to the world. And if we want that European transition to climate neutrality is a role model for the world, then we need to create competitive industries. And I see there is a great role of cooperation among us in order to make out of Baltic Sea a place where these competitive industries will be providing not only for solutions for us, but also for the world.
Thank you. And Mr. Žygimantas Vaičiūnas, please.
Thank you. First of all, I would like to congratulate Poland for taking this leadership, and Michał Kurtyka in particular, because leadership is the first point to success. The second point, of course, that we have to congratulate each other of cooperating and being together. And this reminds, of course, the BEMIP history very well. I mean, the BEMIP format was birthed in 2009. At that time was the key question to ensure the interconnectivity, mostly for the Baltic states, and also to ensure the market integration. Then the volume number 2 in 2015 was renewables and synchronization of our system. And now it means that, in principle, we are moving towards step 3, volume number 3, concerning the offshore development in the region. And I really see that this is a long-standing story, having in mind that before we had the joint interest. But in principle, this cooperation, I hope, will be really inclusive, having in mind that we have all the countries participating very actively, sharing the same interest and sharing the same activities. And the second point, this will be really the long-term cooperation, at least till 2050, as we see from the numbers on our targets. So, what was really the key thing, that we have shared interest, but about the challenges, yes, will be the grid connectivity, financing part of the grid, also the integration of this offshore wind to the national energy system. That will be the key challenges. But I do hope and I do see that with these commitments, what we can have, and also with the clear vision, we will be really easy to commit to the things and to achieve these targets. And this is really a new page for our cooperation history and story. And I do believe that this will be really a practical cooperation for our future, not only for the ministries, but also for our TSOs and for all the necessary companies here.
Thank you very much. And Minister Timo Tiilikainen.
Thank you, Chair. Dear colleagues, it's so good to see all of you gathered together. And I would like to also thank Michał for calling us together for this conference. And I would also one more time like to thank Michał for the excellent cooperation we had during the COP24 you referred in your speech. I think that there are no major obstacles in the way of enhanced cooperation between Baltic Sea countries concerning offshore wind production. Because of the characteristics of offshore wind power, the wider deployment benefits from enhanced cooperation and sharing of good practices nationally, regionally, as well as globally. I think that we are facing partly similar barriers and hurdles, and the key is to increase and deepen the cooperation, as we have now decided to do so. This is a good starting point for our cooperation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. It sounds optimistic. And a question to Minister Sebastian de Toro from Sweden.
Yes, thank you very much. I would especially like to start thanking Poland and Minister Kurtyka for organizing this conference and the possibility to participate by video conference. I would also like to thank Poland, the other Baltic Sea countries and the European Commission for all the ambitious work that has been put into the declaration that we are signing today. I can fully endorse the declaration, and I know that my colleague that was here before me already told you so. Offshore renewable energy has a huge potential locally, regionally, and at the EU level. The development of renewable energy projects on all levels contributes to the European Union's energy targets for 2030 and to the overarching goal of climate neutrality by 2050 in all EU member states. The Baltic Sea countries have unique opportunities for regional cooperation and further development of offshore wind power. But of course, there are challenges. One example is that every country has its own legislation concerning the permits for offshore wind power plants, as well as different procedures and authorities. Other challenges include finding locations for cost-effective deployment of offshore wind and the allocation of costs when it comes to joint and hybrid projects. And these are issues that we all have to discuss and find solutions for in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So now I give you voice.
Yes, and Mary, I apologize. I start again with you. And there's a reason. Is Denmark is already known for being one of the main investors in offshore wind. And you mentioned that Denmark is planning to construct the first offshore hub around the island of Bornholm. Could you tell us a little bit more about that project and how you see it aligned with the cooperation in the larger Baltic Sea?
Yeah, certainly, and I'm glad this is the long part of the session. If I go on, then just stop me, because this is really exciting. I think it is really changing the way we look at the offshore wind from being the individual wind farms to a regional approach, and thinking these hybrid projects and make them a reality. So. In June, the Danish government, along with the broad majority of the Danish parliament, agreed on a climate plan that says that we want to build actually 2 energy hubs, one in the North Sea, starting with 3 gigawatts, expanding to up to 10, or at least 10, I think it's called, and one in the Baltic Sea near the island of Bornholm, which will be 2 gigawatts. Both to be done by 2030. And anybody who's done any kind of major infrastructure knows that that's a pretty tight deadline. Part of the thinking is that instead of, as I said, building always the last offshore wind farm, we want to make these hubs where you can have several wind farms surrounding the hub, and then you collect all the power produced and can distribute that to different countries. Can also connect it to Power to X. That's the dream, the vision that we have, that can be part of the projects as well, and that way utilize the energy much more efficiently and in cooperation with our close neighbors. So I think that actually speaks very much to the heart of what we have just signed here today, and intend to collaborate closer in the Baltic region. Again, as I think I said in my introduction, if we are to harness the massive wind potential that we have in Europe, both in the North Sea and the Baltic Sea and elsewhere, we need to change the way we look at things, and this is a concrete project where we are changing that from a Danish perspective. But again, we cannot do it alone, because then there's nothing new to it. So we are reaching out to our neighbors, and in dialogue with them, we'll have to look into these projects to make sure that they are sound projects and good business cases, in a way to actually make them happen in real life.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I hope that, because we still are not sure if the Danish company will come to JV in Poland here with our state-owned company, but we think this is also a great opportunity to learn from these countries which have such experiences as Denmark. It's really good to learn from these who started so long ago. Yes.
We started so long ago that our first offshore wind farm has already been taken down again.
Yeah.
Because it was, obsolete. But we are always happy to share our experiences. I think that's crucial.
Yes. So, and I have a question to Minister Feicht, because in 2016, so it's already 5 years, you have signed a declaration on cooperation on North Seas. And how do you think BMIP could benefit from this experience, and what advice would you give to Baltic countries based on your experience there? I believe there were some challenges, some good achievements, but also mistakes. So maybe you could say something more about your view on that.
Yeah, thank you very much. First of all, stick together. That would be the first advice. And when the cooperation started, it was more or less talking together and learn from each other. So from the early movers like Denmark, and Germany is also an early mover, and then a lot of other countries started to make big effort on offshore. You saw it on the map, UK, the Netherlands, and now France is coming up. So the first thing was bringing business together, bringing the TSO together, and learning from each other, because everybody who is starting in the first place, he has to make some mistakes, and it's good for the late comers to learn from those lessons, and also of course from the technology, which has improved very much. So the first windmills which has been constructed, I think it was 5 megawatt or 6 megawatt windmills, something like that. You're better on that to know than I am, but now we talk about 10, 11, or even 40 megawatts. So this is good for the latecomers to just say, let's see, that we see what has been developed, and we can now go on this new technological level. But the second thing is that what I mentioned before, and what also my colleague from Denmark mentioned, is that now we come more and more to cooperative forms, not only discussing things like regulatory framework, which is very important, but also to forms of cooperation when it comes to investments. And this is, of course, something which has to be evaluated on the question of technological development, business cases, but also the question: should we align our market designs, our scheme of risk sharing, for example, not only on the grid level, but also on the level of this development of the wind farms itself. So that's why it's very important to have a stable format where we can meet, so that it's not only to be on accident, let's say, and to pick up the phone, which is also very important, but to have a stable format where the governments work together, but also where business can work together, and that they can rely on a stability when it comes to these formats.
But you mean that the governments support the investors, or the government think of joint projects?
Well, the governments must know what the investors are needing, what their needs are. But we are here in a business which is very capital intensive, of course, and which relies to a stable framework, like regulatory framework, subsidy framework, the question of how the energy is integrated in the regional energy markets. Because if you start now with the development of a project, it lasts 8 years, 9 years, 10 years until it is installed. So it's a long way to do that, and therefore a good format of communication is really crucial, because what is always the challenge for policymakers is that we have to be stable, although there are sometimes general elections. People sometimes are changing.
Yes.
It's very seldom, but it happens. So, and therefore, beyond the question of what single personal or single people are doing, they need a stable format, despite the question who is Müller, Meyer, Schulze part of this or not. Okay.
So we should learn from you, but as regards offshore, I think we really managed to go forward and be stable, because we will really have this act soon, despite of some internal movements and changes. So thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to bring now our attention to Estonia, because we mentioned hybrid projects and having wind farms generating power that could feed different markets. It's a pioneering concept. And Estonia and Latvia have just signed a memorandum of understanding for joint venture wind farm, which is quite a pioneering new step. And I would like, Timo, if you can give us a little bit more information about this memorandum of understanding and the project that is behind this.
So indeed, this is a pioneering concept, but we hope that in the future this is a solution which others can follow. But this is truly a flagship with how a joint cross-border cooperation should be handled, and this declaration also gives a good boost for such cooperation project to follow in other Baltic regions, so that there could be a regional balance. Indeed, we sort of kicked off the cooperation with our Latvia, because we are not only sharing a land border, we are also sharing a border on sea, and it was for us only a logical step that if we both are ambitious when it comes to meeting our climate targets, and we are both small country, then we have to make great things together to use the economy of scale, and also once planning offshore projects, then do it right from the very beginning, meaning that building networks and developing a hybrid wind farms. Indeed, a weak memorandum of understanding between Estonia and Latvia was signed, and it is about a wind farm in a size of 700 to 1,000 megawatts. We are going to pre-develop an area. We are going to pre-develop electricity connection, a hybrid connection, and then this to a market participant. Ministries are not going to build any wind farms. So this is still a project which eventually will be offered for investors to make the investment. So we are just preparing a land and taking down the barriers and risks which are related to the offshore wind farms. And of course, the challenge for Estonia, at least, and I believe also for Latvia, is that this is the first of its kind project. We don't have too much experience with offshore wind farms. This is where we would like to learn from the others. That experience, Denmark is a good partner here, I believe, and I hope And of course, the challenge is that to do it at the first time and learning by doing. So that's the challenge. But yes, indeed, a hybrid in a size of 700 to 1,000 megawatts with a hybrid connection connecting Estonia and Latvia.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And a question to Minister Jurgis Miezainis. Could you add something? Maybe you would like to add something to what your Estonian colleague have said, because you are the other party to this MOU. And are you planning any other projects now? I mean, own or hybrid, and how do you think signing this declaration could help you in succeeding in development of offshore?
Thank you. Colleague already before basically mentioned all the key points that are the basis why countries need and must work together regarding projects like this. And one of these obstacles for a smaller country to develop on its own is cost, of course. And Timo already gave a glimpse about how we are looking at the future business case, because the business case always means that the cost of produced electricity and of course the cost for the end consumer. And this working together between countries with Estonia, I can say it goes very far way back in time. And for, like, I would say, modern development of energy network, I would say that the first step was opening the electricity market in Latvia and Estonia, and how it went with this interconnections and renewing the interconnections and increasing the power of them. And every single step during these processes has put our regulations more aligned to each other and more understanding between our TSOs as well. So I think this is a logical way to go, and I'm very hope that this will be the project that will greatly benefit Latvia, Estonia, and Europe the whole. Regarding today declaration of today, it's of course every example and every like idea brought to the table by any country that is by the Baltic Sea is very important, and everyone will work, and it's like it's very wise to learn from different others' mistakes, not to learn from your own mistakes. And of course the added value is there, and I think one of the ways is like we can share, we can agree on many things in formats like here, and just keep on moving and reaching the climate goals and climate neutrality by 2050. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now I would have a question to Minister Žygimantas Vaičiūnas. As you mentioned, your main challenge is to address interconnection and synchronization of with Central Europe. So you could more than half of your production trade to other countries. So in this context, the interconnection is essential. And do you confirm it, these trading plans, and how much capacity do you expect to achieve in offshore in the perspective of 2030, 40, 50?
Thank you for the question. I think that's really true that here we all share the same interest, and this is about 3 C's in principle: to have creative in our cooperation in order to ensure the cost efficiency of the offshore wind development. So that's the motivation which lies behind this hybrid project. The same as just to mention the Lithuanian case. Also, just a week ago we signed the memorandum of understanding with Luxembourg on the possibility. Now we have the story and history of the statistical transfer agreement that we also agreed to cooperate as a joint project on the development of the offshore part of Lithuania, to be like a joint project. This is also the way how we can reduce the cost and share the renewable statistics. But in principle, answering to your question, yes, we have the potential in the near just Klaipėda, just 30 kilometers, 3.4 gigawatts capacity for the long term. As a first step, we are planning to build 700 megawatts capacity. And of course, this is goes in line with our synchronization project, because one of the key projects of synchronization is the Harmony Link project. And of course, building together with and working very intensively on this project with Poland. Our TSOs are working very heavily on this. And really, as a in parallel, this will not be the same cable, but in parallel, now we are making the synergies that from the planning procedures, we can save the time and save the cost to ensure also the planning and to connect the offshore windmills to the system. So as a first step, till 2030, 700 megawatts should be developed. And this is a nice coincidence because just yesterday, I was presenting in National Parliament the law about a support system for the offshore wind development. This is contract for different system. Now we are moving also to ensure the state aid procedures with the European Commission. But in principle, we are declaring very clear 2 dates. One date is 2023, when the auction will be released, and 2027. This is a responsibility of our transmission system operator to connect and to be prepared to connect this offshore wind to the grid. And this will be declared in the law, because once you have in the law, this is very clear, all the clarity for the market participants, and this is the way how we are moving. But in principle, my message is here quite simple. We have all national ambitions, national targets, because it's natural. Now we have national energy and climate plans. This motivates us to go as fast as possible and to achieve these targets. But in principle, while achieving these national targets, we have found all the most efficient cooperation schemes, be it bilateral, be it regional, and this is the way, this is the only way for us to succeed.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Minister Kurtyka, Poland is the initiator and of the signing of this Baltic Declaration today. How do you see Poland's further role in this initiative that started today? And with regards to the southern coastal area of this region that we're considering, how do you foresee the supply chain potential of Poland with regards to the needs of Poland, but also the other countries in the Baltic Declaration?
Thank you very much, Philippe. First of all, well, I'm very grateful and very happy to see my colleagues patiently looking at the videos and my colleagues from Denmark, Germany, and Lithuania coming here. That shows during the COVID time how much important it is, and that we really take this subject all together very seriously. And I think that we have the momentum for that. European Green Deal is at the heart of European project. Offshore wind is at the heart of this strategy, but it's also at the heart of Polish strategy. We are very happy that, of course, we can learn from our friends and from all the projects in North Sea. And thank you for all the intellectual capital that you are bringing in this endeavor. Thank you, Denmark. Thank you for cost effectiveness and all enhanced technologies that you developed already together with Germany and others in the North Sea. And I think that right now it's the momentum for the Baltic Sea. And as my colleague said, I think we all see that this potential needs to be right now materialized with concrete action plan. And we will be very happy to discuss with our friends, with our colleagues around Baltic Sea, to make step-by-step patient points and discussions in order to better materialize this potential among us, and to make sure that even a latecomer like Poland, as you said, might become also one of the leading country. And when I'm saying that, I'm also noticing that there is a big burden of responsibility on the Polish shoulders in the development of wind offshore in the Baltic Sea. First of all, we have learned that this is Poland which is having the lion's share of the potential around the Baltic Sea. That's physics, and that's how geology has made our seashores, but not only, because as somebody jokingly said during our discussions today, Poland is the only country in the world which is already having an established value chain in the offshore wind without having a single offshore wind farm. So we have very talented people, we have great entrepreneurs, and especially here in Szczecin, we know how many people are already working all around the world, and especially on the North Sea in wind offshore development. So we are very happy to take this responsibility, but this will never materialize unless we do it together. And I liked very much a simple reset from my friend from Germany saying, let's stick together. And this declaration is for us to stick together and to work together and to make sure that we can work it out. And of course, industrial development will be very important. This is why we want also through this conference, through this gathering of industry, we want to initiate the dialogue with industry between government, Polish government, and industry, which is willing to develop this industry. We want to negotiate to have a sectoral deal around offshore wind sector. Again, by considering that it's helping us here in the Baltic Sea, but again, if we are to be successful, we need to create a sustainable industry for zero-emission technologies for the world. And last but not least, I think we really have the momentum for this cooperation, as right now with COVID, we see that geography and distances matters again. And that coming to Szczecin from Copenhagen, Berlin, or Warsaw, well, Berlin is actually the closest. I'm sorry for our friends from Estonia, Latvia, Finland. Sweden is not that far. But again, it's better probably to develop this industry, to work together on the opportunities that we have in our neighborhood, and Baltic Sea is such an opportunity, rather than trying very far from here to bring European skillful technologies and people in the world. So let's start with Baltic Sea, and let's make this cooperation really a cornerstone for European Green Deal and our transformation.
Thank you for this answer. my next question is to Minister Kimmo Tiilikainen. What kind of challenges does the Finnish climate bring to construction of offshore wind farms? You have a demonstration project in Tahakoluoto, I hope I said it properly, which is the first world project designed to ice conditions. And the question is, do you think that Baltic countries could benefit from your experience with this demonstration project? And is it really an issue in global warming times?
So thank you, and I do hope that we can all benefit from these experiences we have gained. The biggest challenge is naturally the ice coverage of the sea areas in Finland. The northern Baltic Sea gets ice almost annually, but even southern parts are regularly covered with ice in winter months from January to March. The challenges arise especially when the ice starts to move and pack. This puts a heavy pressure to the foundations of the offshore wind plants. The Tahkoluoto offshore wind power plant has been in operation since 2017, and all the measurement equipment placed in foundations has provided us a lot of data during these years. The experiences concerning the foundations are very good, and this quite extensive data can be utilized in future projects. In addition, there are several solutions concerning the building phase and especially maintenance, which the company has piloted in terms of the logistics and how the maintenance are handled in most cost-efficient way. We see that there will be increasing interest towards solutions for Arctic conditions, and therefore there's definitely a lot to benefit from the experiences from this demonstration project. In terms of Finnish offshore wind development, there are a number of projects, including the extension of Tahkoluoto, but the total costs are still high. And on the other hand, the electricity market price is low. In addition, we still have a lot of potential for onshore wind, and the focus has been less on offshore wind so far. However, Finland is aiming to become climate neutral already by year 2035. This is set in our governmental program. It's also outlined in the current Finnish governmental program that we are looking for new policy measures for accelerating the development of offshore wind potential. We see that the industry, as well as heating and transportation sectors, are going through electrification. This means that the need for clean electricity increases rapidly, and offshore wind power is one of the key technologies in future. We need rather soon next offshore demonstration project scaling up from the first project. We are currently looking into utilizing either recovery and resilience funds or other EU instruments such as renewable energy financing mechanism to speed up the offshore projects in our icy conditions. And I'm very sure that we can all benefit from the cooperation between each other. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And it looks a little bit like Eurovision, but I would like to turn our eyes to Sweden. Sebastian, according to the European Commission report, the potential of Sweden in the Baltic Sea is up to 20 gigawatts. Could you share with us a little bit, first of all, if you agree with that forecast, and what, in your view, needs to happen to reach it? In particular, how the declaration signed today could contribute to help reaching this target?
Much. Well, first of all, we have not yet fully analyzed the Commission report, but from our own analysis, we see a potential of reaching around 12 to 13, up to 25 gigawatts. of offshore wind power in 2050, depending on the calculation method that we use. As I mentioned before, there is great potential in general in offshore renewable energy, and further development of offshore wind is important to fulfill both national and the targets for the European Union. But wind power, of course, also competes with other interests, for instance, those related to the defense industry or different kinds of environmental aspects. We also need to take these interests into account when developing the grid further, both when it comes to offshore and onshore wind power. Our experience is that the process for permits takes time and is often very complex. A rapid transformation to a carbon-free and green economy requires efficient permitting procedures. Therefore, the Swedish government has recently started an inquiry that shall propose how the environmental permitting procedures can become faster and more effective, while maintaining current levels of environmental protection. Regarding the question how the declaration contributes to the development of offshore wind in Sweden, I think that it can contribute further to focusing on offshore winds in a positive way. It can also send a signal to investors and project managers that the government sees the offshore wind important. We see offshore wind as an important contribution to achieving the target of 100% renewable electricity production by 2040, and the declaration will help us just to promote that vision further. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think a person has been very patiently listening. And I'd like now to offer Joachim Balke, who is part of the DG Energy at the European Commission, to share with us a bit some observation, because it would be very interesting to understand how this Baltic State Declaration fits into the European offshore strategy that is currently under discussion. And how do you see the European Commission in this process? Could it be a coordinator, a facilitator, a source of knowledge? What are your thoughts?
Yes, thanks very much for the invitation, and thanks very much also from my side to the organizers, our Polish friends and colleagues, for having taken the initiative to make this declaration a reality. And I would say that from our side, from the Commission side, we've been very, very happy to assist in this process all along, precisely because it does, in our view, capture very well the focus that we also intend to pursue in the offshore renewable energy strategy, which is really all about regional cooperation. And it's been mentioned many, many times. And it is certainly the cornerstone of what we are going to propose later on in autumn. Clearly, in this offshore strategy, what we want to do is regard the EU as a whole, because we do believe that developing offshore renewables is a chance for each and every member state in Europe. With the declaration that has been endorsed today, we have two regions, the North Sea and the Baltic Sea region, which now have high-level commitments, which is a very, very good base. And we do also intend to address the specific requirements of other sea basins in Europe, the Atlantic, the Mediterranean, and the Black Sea, which we believe can also follow this positive example that has been set today. Now, this being said, clearly, the Baltic Sea has a huge potential, as has been mentioned many times. That is not only because of its natural endowment, but it is also because of the tradition for regional cooperation and the existing structures in the BMIP high-level group. And that is indeed a very, very important foundation to build on. It will allow, in our view, implementing what lies at the heart of the offshore strategy in practice, regional cooperation on many levels, in many dimensions. On the generation side, as far as grid planning and development is concerned, but also indeed for the wider aspects of maritime spatial planning and how to basically arbitrate between different users of the seabed, of the marine environment, and they've been mentioned. And indeed, this is an issue which we believe can only effectively and efficiently been done at a regional, at a sea basin level. Now you asked, what role do we see for ourselves as the European Commission in this? Probably the term that captures it best and that we would probably use is indeed the one of facilitator, because there are different processes that we think we can facilitate. At the same time, it is absolutely clear that member states are key in stimulating and putting into practice regional cooperation, and not only member states. Obviously, what we need is the active involvement of private actors, of investors, but also of civil society to make this a success. This being said, it's also clear that there are some areas where member states, and we've heard it also today, are clearly looking at the Commission to fulfill this role of facilitator, I would say, in a proactive manner. And perhaps just to mention three of them. Clearly, what is needed is regional level, first-class regional level grid planning, which has a pace which is quick enough to match basically the deployment of the offshore renewables. Secondly, clearly what is needed is clarity about market rules, market arrangements, and that is clearly has a European dimension. And thirdly, what I think was also mentioned, amongst others, by State Secretary Feicht, there is a need to look more closely into how to share costs and benefits between countries, but also actors involved. And there is a call, I think, also to the European level to look into potential guidance in how to achieve an equitable distribution of costs and benefits in an exercise which will ultimately benefit all. Lastly, one word on the feedback that we've so far received through the many consultation activities that we've undertaken for the offshore strategy. I would say in general, this has been very, very positive, not only in terms of the number of contributions, but also the wide range of actors which have replied, and the content which confirms, I think, that there is this interest for us to, in a sense, take a bit the lead. I would also like to stress that in particular here from the Baltic Sea region, we have received a very high share of contributions, 56 out of a total of 200. So that shows once again that your region is clearly very highly interested. We've also received replies from 8 different ministries, and we would like to thank you very much for that. And again, I think it all underpins the high involvement from all actors in this region. And in that sense, we would like to thank you once again for having brought this conference and this declaration forward. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And the Baltic Sea Declaration, which you have just signed, establishes a working group dedicated to offshore in the Baltic Sea. So I believe that the first meeting of the group will take place soon, and all these issues will be discussed because we can see that many of them are similar or even identical, and we as industry, as representatives of investors and supply chain, declare to support you fully in this process. So if you need anything we as PSEW and WindEurope as well is offering full support, sharing experience, plans, information. So I hope that this process will go very smoothly. Would you like to add something, Philippe?
I just have to add one simple thing. I'd like to really thank all the participants, and I include, of course, the physical panel, the online panel, as well as all the participants to the conference. If we are capable in these COVID difficult times to maintain the date and sign the declaration, it's a very good sign of the leadership that was mentioned before. But there's a big difference with the Eurovision, is that in this case, all the countries will win because the potential of the Baltic Sea is fantastic. Yes. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And yes, thank you for that. And we would kindly ask Minister Kurtyka to shortly summarize this session, and then we will have a common picture. Yes, please.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm closing this ministerial session of the Pomeranian Offshore Wind Conference with a deep sense of satisfaction. We are strengthening the cooperation in the Baltic Sea region. We have a joint goal to create a cooperation platform which will enable the development of offshore wind energy in the Baltic Sea area. We want to create an opportunity for a real integration of the offshore wind energy sector. We want to build a platform helping us in overcoming barriers and challenges and facilitating exchange of knowledge and practice between our countries. I'm pleased that my counterparts from neighboring countries, ministers from Denmark, Germany, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Finland, and Sweden share common position on this matter. My special thanks for all our participants through video for their patience, and my special thanks to Maria, Andreas, and Žygimantas for coming here to Szczecin so that we can celebrate this day together physically as well. And the aim of our cooperation is to accelerate the development of offshore wind power in the Baltic Sea, to coordinate and optimize activities leading to develop economic potential of the region. It's about cooperation in the field, and we spoke about it, maritime spatial planning, as well as network development, power planning, and support mechanisms. All these elements, we recognize it, are key to build a well-functioning energy market and infrastructure. And we also see that the Baltic Sea can play a significant role in the efforts to achieve EU climate neutrality by 2050 and the energy transformation of individual countries in the region. We confirmed that we are waiting with impatience for the upcoming EU strategy for offshore renewables, and will be considering it as a guide for the member states in the offshore field. My special thanks goes as well to Commissioner Kadri Simpson, as well as Director General Ditte Jørgensen for joining us through video and making everything possible so that we can sign together here this declaration, as European Commission will be playing a key role in further steps and implementation of this declaration. And although we have had to face the COVID-19 crisis that has affected economies around the world, I can see also from this panel and from this declaration that offshore wind industry is growing at a steady pace, and I think it will be even stronger right now here, especially in the field of Baltic Sea. And we see also development of offshore wind energy as one of the key recovery projects after COVID-19 pandemic, supporting the cost-intensive energy transformation to achieve the net zero target. Last but not least, the development of offshore wind energy brings great potential and opportunities to support local production and service enterprises involved in the supply chain. It strengthens the position of European companies in the global offshore wind energy value chain, and it's an opportunity for Europe to be also a partner of other countries and to provide them with sustainable alternative as a zero-emission friendly source of energy. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to thank very much Polish Wind Energy Association team for organizing such a great event. Janusz, thank you very, very much. I would like also thank you very much, Philippe, for coming here to Szczecin. I hope that you will like the place. And thank you for WindEurope for being such a great enabler of this declaration. Thank you. Thank you. So I hope that some of our next meetings, maybe the one of the group, not yet, but probably the next ones will be done in person, as we will be also progressing on this COVID-19 pandemic and making sure that it's disappearing slowly. I wish you all a safe trip home, and to those who are staying in Szczecin for the second day of the conference, I wish very fruitful discussions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and we invite you to all the ministers, also those present online, to the photography. So please take your places. I will ask for some support here. Kto to? Kto pan?
Social distance.
Co? Ja też mam tam stanąć? Zrobimy sobie jedno z panami.
Like this. Go to. That's like the notes. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. All the guests, thank you for online participation today with us in Szczecin.
Thank you.
Now we will have a short break, just 5-minute technical break, and we would like to ask all the media to stay with us and ministers to join the press conference. Other participants are welcome for the study tour to the Vulcan Training Center, where we will host you to the evening gala. So thank you very much again. Thank you very much. All the ministers at the stage again, please approach to the floor, and I would like to give the floor for our moderator from WindEurope, Małgosia Bartosik. Welcome.
joining us here on the stage and not getting lost somewhere in the corridor. So thank you very much for being back to the stage. My name is Małgosia Bartosik. I'm a Deputy CEO at WindEurope, working very close with Janusz and the team on this conference. So we have envisaged half an hour for this press briefing. We have the 4 ministers here on the stage. I was told that we also have the ministers from Finland and Estonia still staying with us on the screen. Maybe we could have the vision on the screen. And as we have some of the journalists here, but there is also a group of journalists that were not able to be with us. There is an online streaming, and they will be watching us online. We were not able to allow questions from the journalists that are online with us. Therefore, we've asked them to submit questions. So I have a list of questions that if the time allows, then I will be basically messenger for the questions that we receive from the journalists. The press conference is going to be in English. However, we do have a translation. So if you would feel more comfortable asking question in Polish, then please do so. And then this would we would just need a bit of a delay for the translation to come to your headsets. So I would like to start with questions first from the journalists and media representatives being here with us. Thank you for joining, and please, if you have any questions, if you could just raise your hand. There is a microphone, I think somewhere, someone with the microphone that would come to you. Please, if you could tell us your name and the newspaper magazine that you represent. So please, I give the floor to our distinguished audience of media representatives. Do we have any questions? Is it the light, or we don't have any questions? Okay, then I'm going to start with questions that we received actually before the press conference, before the event, and some of those questions were already responded during the ministerial panel. The questions were sent, I believe, yesterday. So I will start with the first question, maybe to Minister Kurtyka. It's a question about the Polish Offshore Act. When will it go to the Parliament? And what happened today, the Baltic Declaration, will it speed up, will it accelerate actually the adoption of it?
Thank you very much. We are working indeed on Polish Offshore Act. It is the constitution for Polish energy offshore development. We are providing all key elements related with grid connections, planning, support scheme, etc. And we have just finalized the work on the next version, which we have submitted to the Council of Ministers, in Polish to Komitet Stały, which is just the stage before Council of Ministers. So once it receives the approval and green light from other ministers at this body preparing the work for Council of Ministers, then it is to be adopted by the Council of Ministers here in Poland. We expect it to happen as soon as possible, and with the objective of making this law going through the Parliament in November and December, and entering into force before the 1st of January 2021.
1st January 2021. Thank you very much. Do we have any questions from the audience? I have the list here, but I'm going to check if there's anyone. Yes, please.
Good afternoon. Marcin Czekański from Monto News. I have a question about the plans, if there are any plans to connect the offshore wind farms in Baltic Sea with cross-border power links to facilitate the trade between the countries. There was a project of, I don't know the English name, but Baltic Rail, I would say, of the interconnector linking German, Polish and Lithuanian wind farms. Is it is it ever considered now, or is this project shelved? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Who would like to take the question?
I can answer for Denmark at least that we are planning offshore wind of 2 gigawatts near the Danish island of Bornholm in the Baltic Sea, and we are looking into having that being connected to neighboring countries. We think that makes it an even better project. So we are reaching out and talking to our neighbors. Nothing has been settled, but that's part of the project that we are working on, that the Danish government and the Danish parliament has decided.
I will add some points that that's practical, that every single building of the offshore mill starts with the platform, technical platform. This is the same in format which we are now. This is the political platform for our cooperation, and this is in principle the idea that we have to investigate all the possibilities to ensure the cost efficiency for the connectivity of the offshore. And of course, we could have different interesting projects, and this is the added value of this, that we can cooperate together, and especially our TSOs can cooperate together. So this is, as we said today, this is the start of the process, the beginning of the process, and we can hope that at the result of this, it will be more and more projects of the interconnectivity and being connected together.
Thank you very much. Would you like to add anything? I'm just talking now to our online ministers. I think that's probably no. Do we have any more questions from the stage? Yes, please. Sorry, from the audience.
Hello, my name is Justyna Piszczatowska. I'm an editor-in-chief of the greennews.pl website. And I would like to ask about the practical aspect of today's declaration. Congratulations on that, Mr. Kurtyka. But do you think that there is a possibility of more support of hypothetical projects that are discussed, like, for example, Danish proposition of cooperation in the offshore islands between Denmark and Poland? Are there possibilities for other cooperations of this kind, not only discussions about the TSO standards and interconnectivity, but also straightforward common investments in new capacities? Thank you very much.
Thank you for the question. So maybe Minister Kurtyka could start.
Thank you very much. Yes, we have excellent cooperation with our Danish partners, and I welcome Minister here in Szczecin, and we have an ongoing dialogue about this project, and thank you very much for bringing it yet again, because you came to Warsaw 2 weeks ago already to discuss it with my colleagues. We will be working on this. Certainly, signing the political declaration is the first step, and we hope that out of this political will, we will be able to emerge concrete projects. How this project will be structured, it is yet too soon to say. I think that first of all, we need to stick together, as my colleague said in this previous session. We see how intense is the cooperation in North Sea, but we see also how much time it takes to get all interests aligned, to make sure that our stakeholders are interests are being taken into account. We hope that with this North Sea experience, we will be able to move faster, because this North Sea cooperation is already long-lasting, but somehow we are using European Commission also in this regard as the institution which is bringing best practices and lessons learned from that cooperation. So we hope we will be able to move quicker together.
Thank you very much. Could I maybe just complement the question to Minister Feicht? From your experience, you are also now not only carrying the presidency of the EU, but you're also carrying the presidency of the North-East collaboration. What is, from your experience, practically, what this sort of creating this sort of platform between the different governments? What does it mean? I mean, can you just tell us? Because I think that was your question as well. What does it mean in practical terms, this sort of collaboration? What are the biggest benefits of it?
Well, I would think it's these are three dimensions. The one is that governments, but also business, can learn from each other from the previous projects, and also, of course, from the lessons learned. In case of lessons learned, so this is the one thing. Because when you go into detail on the regulatory framework which the national government has to provide and has to propose to the parliament, one can learn from each other, and this is the one thing. The second is to bring governments and businesses together in order to discuss innovation. Innovation on the question of how the efficiency of wind production generation can be raised up, but also what we didn't discuss so far a little bit is Power-to-X and hydrogen. So all these things are also linked together, also with wind offshore. And the third thing is to be clear of what we want to have from the Commission. So we have one platform. This is this one, where the governments are working together, but there's also one big, giant platform for cooperation on European level. This is the European Union. And therefore, the framework, let's say when it comes to the question what is an interconnector, what are hybrid projects, and what is the regulatory framework for this, this very influence and influence very much the business cases of each single project, and therefore an enabling framework on European level is quite crucial. And it is always very reasonable that a lot of countries are working together to have the same vision on the question of how European regulation should be established, and then discuss it with the Commission as one voice, I would say. So this is from the policy making point of view.
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay, just 2 sentences from the Lithuanian as an observer point of view, because I really remember very well 2016, June, when this Northern Sea cooperation was signed. And at that time, this was really some skepticism about this cooperation, how to work well and so on. But now from today's perspective, we see that this was really clear added value. So the same about this format. It is earlier to evaluate, but from your experience, this is clear that without this format, without this cooperation, without knowing very well what is needed and necessary from the Commission, now you will be at the really not the situation where you are now. So this is really congratulations on the things, and for us, of course, is to bring this experience for us together.
Maybe just last thing that we are also happy with the experience of the BEMIP format. And when you ask about concrete results, we have started to discuss synchronization of Baltic states with a vision of ending this synchronization. That was a political vision, that was a political will, but at the beginning we didn't know how it will translate into concrete projects. And right now what we see is that there is a very concrete materialization of this cooperation. The Baltic states are going to synchronize with the system of continental Europe through Poland. We are very happy of providing this energy, but not only energy security, to our Baltic state friends. And we see, for example, the development of concrete projects such as Harmony Link, which was not possible unless we discussed in depth how this political project should be translated into technical details. And we see right now also this Harmony Link project to be very much debated within CEF financing, and we are very happy together with Minister Žygimantas following how well this project is welcomed right now in the Commission. So we need to have a vision. So we start with the vision, then we will put the action plan, and certainly we will be able to answer all your questions as time goes by.
One sentence, I would like to fully subscribe to Michał Kurtyka saying how the things was developed. So in principle, this BEMIP is a classical form of cooperation. The new thing is that we have the offshore, and thanks for this initiative for Poland and Michał in particular for making this leadership. So this is the way forward, and that's clear that we have no other choice just to cooperate. We have now a national energy and climate plans, but we have to be together.
No other choice, we have to stick together. That's a very good message. I would like to maybe ask a question to the ministers that we have, online with us. To the Estonian minister, are you still planning to apply for the EU support for the Liivi Bay or any other offshore wind projects in the Gulf of Riga, jointly with Latvia? Is that your plan? This is a question from research. We can't hear you.
I think Estonia is connected from this press conference, but from Latvia, Jørgensen's parliamentary secretary. How can I, a little bit, I would like to continue the previous question thought. And the basis of every every project and project becoming a reality, especially projects that are cross-border projects, as our colleagues from Lithuania and Poland already mentioned, are based on common interests. Common interests, and then we as politicians come together and lay this background as for the business, for the stakeholders to understand what will be the principalities of developing one or another project or idea or vision. And then we go to the regulatory framework. And inline regulatory framework is a must-have when you're talking about these projects of cooperation and projects of common interests. And then there's this business model. And of course, for every project that will be developed regarding common interests and cross-border interests and regional interests, we will evaluate every single source of financing, and but that's more in the future. Currently, we need to understand, can we realize this project? If you're talking about Latvian and Estonian hybrid offshore wind park. So it's quite early to say, but yes, of course, we will evaluate every single source of financing. Thank you.
Very much. Do we have any more questions from the audience? Yes, I think there's a question over there.
Hello, it's Rita Tarzyńska speaking from the Dziennik Gazeta Prawda Daily. I have a question, two questions actually. The first one would be if there will be any other agreement followed after this declaration. I mean the transmission operators or by the businesses. Do you plan that any other agreement on the business, for example, level or the operators will be concluded in the nearest future? And the second one would be about your cooperation on the EU forum, because now the new EU perspective will be launched soon, and there is some significant amount of money foreseen for the green projects and also in the frame of the recovery fund. So do you plan to form any of the lobbying group or alliance to support such projects and to pitch for the beneficial or regulatory framework for such investments? Thank you.
Thank you. I think this question is relevant probably to each of you. Who would like to start? Anyone?
Maybe I might start when it comes to the question in direction of the European Union, because as we are acting as a presidency of the European Union now in the second half of this year, and we put various points on the topic of our agenda. One is hydrogen, another is the integration of the renewables into the system, energy integration scheme, but one is offshore. And when it comes to offshore, we want to have, by the end of the year, in our formal EU Council meeting, we want to have Council conclusions. Because in the next couple of months, the European Commission will propose specific regulations when it comes to offshore, and we want to deliver as a council. We want to deliver an impulse for that, for this regulatory schemes and debate which will come up. And this is what we call an EU enabling framework. So when you look at those, the question was whether there will be more common projects like the Danish one or others throughout Europe. And this is quite complicated to establish because we need a common financing framework. We need a common view on the grid question and issue. So what I already mentioned before, you have bigger, quite big offshore parks in the future when you look at the next 10 to 20 years, and this is a short-term period when you look at offshore because of the high intensity of capital. But what is the grid about? Is it a national grid, or are these interconnectors? And if there are interconnectors, there are different and other requirements to these interconnectors in order to third-party access and only 70% or 30% which can be nominated in the first place. So this is very important for the business cases and also for the risk sharing between the countries who are putting these subsidies and also this financing into their own subsidy scheme. The question is, what does it do with the power prices at home for the consumers? So this is very, very important in order to make all these common projects happen. They are upcoming when they are still purely national, because then everybody of ourselves can propose and deliver the regulation for that to the national governments. But if you want to do it as on a cooperation level, we need to have an European reliable framework. And from this perspective, we want to take profit here in this cooperation on the Baltics. But we can also deliver these lessons learned to the other European partners, which will come up a little bit later, like Black Sea or other regions. And this is certainly also a positive outcome.
Thank you very much. Anyone would like to add anything?
Also, I have to subscribe to a lot of the elements which has been said. But in principle, today really we have a very good momentum. not only because of the German presidency to the EU, but also the other factors. For example, this is the question about the, here I'm talking mostly about the Baltic states and Poland. Our TSOs now learned to work together. I mean, the implementation of the synchronization project, of course, heavily working on this project, and naturally after now we have to plan the further steps. So naturally after this project will be implemented, later on we have to step in with the offshore and the connectivity to the grid. So this is one moment, and of course this forum is like, now we have the cooperation platform for the ministries, for the TSOs, and just the question of time, Commission like the facilitator inviting us and discussing it. So probably this is not the best timing for gathering together because of the COVID-19 situation, but the best timing from that perspective that also industry, the supply chain is prepared, and the cost effectiveness, I mean, of the offshore itself, it is now comparatively cheaper than it was before. And the last but not the least, once answering the question about the European Commission, yes, this is really the best timing, having in mind that additional financial resources is being mobilized to ensure the Green Deal implementation. And here, the offshore is one of the answers. And here, of course, will be natural lobby group. I mean that this format, and making the projects, and Commission will see what is the nice projects for the future, where the added value is clear, and what of the financing could be, for example, for the self-renewables and so on. So this is natural thing, and this is really good that we have the best momentum to kick off on the implementation of this offshore initiative.
Thank you very much. I think we have, if I'm not mistaken, we have 5 more minutes. Yes, please.
Thank you. My name is Bartek Sawicki from Business Alert PL. Well, I have a question about HarmonyLink. Do you think that HarmonyLink can optimize the cost of offshore wind in Poland and Lithuania?
As you know, with Litpol-Link between Poland and Lithuania, but we said that it's necessary to have a second link between Poland and Lithuania, and via Lithuania with Latvia and Estonia, in order to secure the synchronization. Because if one of these links is not properly working, then the other one will ensure the stability of supply of energy. It's difficult, I think, right now to predict how this will impact the prices. Certainly, it will link our markets, but we have also to take into account the fact that the synchronization process is going to put on the shoulder of other countries within the synchronized system the energy security and the supply security for our colleagues in Lithuania, Latvia and Estonia. Right now, it's possible for some countries, even although there is a big debate on it, and I certainly let Žygimantas speak about it, on the trade with third countries. And as we are moving forward for synchronization, then we will stick the flow and the trade of electricity within the border of European Union member states, which will certainly make a different pattern in terms of energy mixes than it is today. So again, I think it's too early right now to say what we expect as an impact on prices.
Yes, in principle, in general, this is clear that we have to wait till this HarmonyLink will be implemented. But in principle, there are two answers. And one answer is about our common trade, and the thing which was referred that really for the future, we have not only to diminish, but also to stop trading with Russia and Belarus in the longer term perspective after desynchronization. Before desynchronization, it is really good that we finally have a principal agreement between the Baltic states that that electricity from Belarus after Ostrovets will be started, after it will be launched, will not be traded in the Baltic states electricity market. And now we are really working very hard. Our TSOs are working very hard. Our regulators are working very hard to ensure technically that these flows will not be there. So as a first step, this will be these flows from the eastern side will be diminished. But to speak about 2025, talking about our markets, this is clear that this will be different technologies. I mean, DC and AC technologies. So after Litpolink will be synchronized, now we have 500 megawatts maximum capacity of the Litpolink for the market purposes. So once we will be synchronized, the most of the thermal capacity, 2,400 megawatts, most of them will be used for the systemic services. It means that it will not be used for the market purposes. And here, Harmony Link is like the compensation for these market losses. So in principle, this will not be a very different change. In principle, this is the compensation for the losses of the Harmony Link, of the Litpolink for the system services. So to answer clearly, in principle, it will not be increasing heavily our interconnectivity, but it will help for our system to maintain security of supply.
Thank you very much. Maybe we can take one more question from the audience if there is any. If not, I don't see any hands up, then maybe I can just ask one more question, and then if you don't mind, we will close it because I think you have a boat trip awaiting you. So let me pick a question. I have a question actually here from one more from Bernard Radovic from Research, and it's to Minister Vasiunas, but I think Mr. Feicht might want to respond as well. So you have said earlier that offshore wind is also a way to achieve energy independence from Russia. In that light, how do you see the Nord Stream development?
Okay, I will
start. Am I finishing it on a very positive, good, collaborative note?
Well, in principle, that's a very interesting question correlating to different things. But in principle, yes, offshore development from the Lithuanian perspective is seen as the possibility to ensure more domestic indigenous energy production, because now we are relying heavily on the electricity import. This is about 70% dependence on import. We are probably the most dependent country in the EU, relying on electricity import. And of course, this year, this was quite a change, having in mind that the gas was comparatively cheap. So this was also a possibility for us to generate for us not only from the renewables, but also from the traditional generation sources. So today, we have about 50% of internal generation. So offshore development after till 2030 will ensure about 25% of all our electricity needs. So this is really an important number for us and for our economy, and to make the investments in our country. Answering about the Nord Stream, of course, always we were keeping the same position, having in mind that we have the LNG terminal experience, having in mind that the diversification of the sources made competition in our market. Before, we were really relying on the one supplier, which is in our case was not a reliable supplier. This was the case that we were paying in 2012 the highest price in the world for gas. So after the terminal came to our market, when this is operating, this year this is the record supplier of gas through our system, about 80%. So now we have really competitive situation for our industry. And this is the answer that always this is not only a geopolitical question, but also the competition question. And in principle, we see that there are a lot of possibilities, instruments to ensure the competition in the market. And I'm glad to see that also Germany is looking forward to develop LNG terminals, which is the source of additional supply. And about the Nord Stream, of course, it's the most important thing was fact done more than a year and a half ago about the application of the third package. And I think that this was agreed in the European Union that this package should be applied to the Nord Stream 2. And this is the position of the EU, and we are sticking that this will be the case.
Thank you very much.
Yes, I mean, when you look at the German perspective, we have about 580 terawatt hours of electricity consumption, and we've got about 2,500 terawatt hours of primarily energy consumption. So this 580 or 600 terawatt hours is part of that. And by now we have 50% of renewables. But if we want to achieve greenhouse gas neutrality by 2050, it all has to be decarbonized. And what we want to have on offshore, we have now 7.7 gigawatt installed capacity. We want to have 20 gigawatts by 2030, an additional 20 gigawatts up to 2040. And this all will help to decarbonize our electricity consumption. But we need, of course, a lot of more electricity, energy for our all-over consumption. But what we do in the meantime is also we phase out of coal, which is also not only for us a challenge, but also for our electrical neighbors, because we rely to each other. And we are phasing out of nuclear. So we rely very much on renewables, and that's why offshore is very important. But we have to have, of course, in order to achieve security of supply, a fallback option. And this fallback option is gas, natural gas. And if you look strategically on that point of view, so phasing out of coal and nuclear and relying on natural gas and renewables, we need not only to diversify the renewables, so this is wind onshore, this is PV, and this is wind offshore, and a very good integration in the European electricity market, we also have to diversify our supply of gas. And supplying of gas is a question of the supplier, but also a question of the infrastructure. And this is where LNG comes in, and this is also where this pipeline comes in. So it's all a question of diversification. And on the long term, we need, of course, to decarbonize this natural gas. So gas is a system. It's a system out of pipelines, terminals, and the use cases of gas. And that's why we launched a hydrogen strategy by the summer of this year. This is also something we want to discuss and debate on a European level. And hydrogen has the potential to shift off natural gas out of the system in order to decarbonize. So this is all part of a consistent made strategy. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm just looking at Annette. Annette, do we have to finish now? Do we have time for one more question? We can have one more question, yes? Then please, if you don't mind. You don't have time. Okay. Okay, I thought that Annette is arranging your time as well. So I need to finish here. Thank you very much for all your responses, and also for staying with us here after the ministerial panel. Thank you also to our online participants, to the ministers. Thank you very much. And on behalf of the industry, if I may, on behalf of the European industry, we very much welcome the Baltic Declaration, and very much looking forward to working together with, stick together with the policymakers, with all the different stakeholders to make it a big success story. Thank you. Dziękuję bardzo.